welcome everyone to our book club meeting. I am your host, Megan, and I'm here with Ira Kramer, who is the Autistic Science Person on Twitter. Ira has her own blog. And tell us all about yourself, Ira.
Pretty much covers it. I don't know. I'm an autistic person. I'm late diagnosed, and I didn't realize this was going to become a whole thing. To be honest, I was like, I'm just going to write about this because I need to write about it. And then I found other people's blogs, and I wrote my own blog because I thought it would be helpful. Because I was like, I can't find anything about this. And then I found Twitter, and that's how I'm here today.
And that's where I found you, was on Twitter. I think I've been following you. You're like one of the first people I followed on Twitter. I've been following you for a long time.
I saw you really early on too. You have a really cool blog.
But yeah, your blog is amazing, and you talk about lots of things. I mean, there's no not that there's no theme, but you talk about lots of things. It's a great blog for parents who are just kind of starting out. Oh, we've got more people. Okay, y'all are being bad already. Hi, Asia 2. Asia 2 is here. Hi. We have somebody from Sydney. And I just figured out Sydney, we're doing time changes this week. And then Australia will be doing time changes. So now it's going to be all weird over there. They're going to wake up on Thursday morning to book club chats. Set your alarm to the book club. It's going to be like 6 a.m. over there. Okay. So, oops, sorry. I'm sharing my office space this now during COVID. So it is what it is. So let's get started. I want to talk about, I'm going to mispronounce it. I want to talk about alexithymia.
Alexithymia?
Kieran calls it alexithymia.
I don't know. I have the same thing when you learn in neuroscience what a synapse is. I've heard people say synapse, and the person who said it was Canadian, and I don't know if it's like an American thing to say synapse rather than synapse. It's the same thing with alexithymia versus alexithymia. So
I think they're all just saying it wrong. They're saying it's definitely synapse, right?
I think so, but I mean, it could be a regional thing. So anyway, I don't know what the proper pronunciation is for that. But
Hi from South Africa. Look at that. We have somebody in South Africa. It's amazing. Sorry. I'm looking. Okay, let me take that off.
No worries.
That's exciting.
I'm having a slow day with words, so.
Good. So am I. So tell us about. Tara said Tara's the boss. Tara says.
Alexithymia. Yeah. Okay. She says alexithymia.
Okay. Well, we'll go with that then. Maybe. Possibly.
It doesn't matter. They're close enough. That's
okay.
Fine.
So can you tell us about alexithymia, especially for give us the breakdown of what it is for new parents, teachers. Break it down for us.
Yeah, so I'm just going to say alexithymia this whole time. Sorry, Sarah. Alexithymia is basically when someone has trouble describing their own emotions and labeling their own emotions. And that also can go hand in hand a lot of times for autistic people with weak interoception signals. So other examples of that would be for me, I don't notice when I'm hungry a lot of times. And so I will literally my stomach will start hurting and then I'll go, oh, I haven't eaten for 6 hours or 7 hours. And then I'll be like, I should really eat something, or I'm getting lightheaded. It's gone to that extent of not noticing it. So it's, for me, it's kind of a conscious thing I have to think about of oh, when have I eaten recently? Let me check in with myself. It's a thing I've had to learn to do. And even then it's not always accurate. So other examples would be I don't notice when sound things are bothering me. If there's a quiet sound that's distracting me, I won't necessarily notice why I'm annoyed. I'll just be I'm kind of annoyed right now. And then only when I accommodate that and wear headphones or something or move away, and I'm oh, I feel a lot better, but I didn't originally know that's why, right? It's trial and error guessing of what's the problem, or like with your emotional state, or like what it is. And sometimes I'll mistake like restlessness for being too warm, because I'll just be like, I just feel like really, agitated right now. And then I'll take my jacket off, and like I just don't recognize being too warm for some reason. And so I'll have my jacket on in like 70-degree weather and be like, why do I feel like this? And I can't, like, it's just when I literally think like this, because I don't know what this is. I just know it's not right. Is this similar to interoception? Yes, it's very similar to interoception.
It seems
So
connected in in every way. Just
So if someone would ask me as a kid, like how I was doing, number one, I just assumed, how are you? Everyone wanted you to just say good anyway. So like I would just say good, even if I didn't know if they meant it or not. And then if they really asked me how I was feeling, I would be like my answers would be like, stressed, frustrated, or fine. Like those are like my three options, because I didn't have any other words to describe like, oh, I'm anxious. Like I didn't know I was anxious for a long time. And that's part of the reason, is probably because of alexithymia, and also because everyone else kind of looks at you and goes, you look really calm, you look fine when you grow up. And so it's kind of hard to, when you think about how autistic people are treated, especially when people don't know you're autistic, they constantly tell you like, oh no, this isn't too loud, this isn't like, it's not too warm in here, it's not like, don't worry about it, you're fine, when you're not fine. And so that can contribute to being like, oh well, everyone else told me I'm fine, so I guess I'm just fine, and nothing's wrong, even if I feel like bad or like frustrated or something.
right. If you're anxious, they'll say, well, you don't have anything to be anxious about, we're just hanging out, or we're chilling, or
right. Or like, you don't, like, I don't look anxious, right? Like I look very calm to people when I'm anxious. I look the same when I'm both calm and anxious. And so other people will see that I'm very still, or I'm like reading a book to try to distract myself to be less anxious, and they'll be like, you look very calm. And I'm like, no. So I guess what I'm saying is alexithymia, although it is like, there's an overlap with people who are autistic and people who have alexithymia. Like I think the most recent article I read was like 50% overlap with like autistic people and people who have alexithymia. But the other thing is that like we're constantly taught that our feelings aren't important, and so it's hard to tell if it's like something that autistic people have or something that we're taught.
Mommy?
Sorry.
No worries.
Yes, baby.
Today is upstairs.
Yeah, go get him. Okay.
Okay, let's play.
Okay, go get him.
Okay, so you gotta go get him, and
Hey, I'll be right there, okay? Okay.
we'll wait for you to come. I will
He's
relax.
gonna wait for me. He's gonna be waiting a long time.
Oh no.
Okay, this is like, yeah, as somebody said, these are the best examples I've heard. They are to me too. Like,
I also, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, well, in the fact that it is so true that, I mean, even just kids in general, like I've heard people say, like, you're 7, you don't get to have those feelings, or you know what I mean? Like you can't be stressed out. You're 7, like it's almost like not allowed to, even just for kids in general, especially when we're talking about like disabled kids. And yeah,
I was just going to mention one other example, which was like literally like a day or two ago. It's like I often don't notice when I have like a tension headache or like sinus pain, and I'm just like, why do I feel bad? And it takes me legitimately 3 hours to like realize, oh, I'm having pain right here, right by my eyes. Okay, so that means I'm probably having a headache. Oh, that explains so much. That's why like it takes me that long to I just am like, something's off. Like I don't have the words or like the ability to assess that. Even with pain. So
yeah, and it's important to know that you're a grown woman. I mean, you're a grown person, right? Yeah. Like
as an adult, I have problems with that. Like, can you imagine like a kid being told like, you're fine, don't worry about this, like, or you can't hear that, like there's no sound, like you're fine. Like, and then as a kid, you're like, I guess so. I guess I just have to live with it. And it's like I literally did not know how to relax. Like people were constantly telling me I was uptight and to relax. I went to physical therapy in high school for I had like pain in my shoulders. It might have been a hypermobility thing. I don't know. I don't have a diagnosis for that. But literally the guy had to push my shoulders down. My shoulders were like this. Like I just was in class
Always.
like this
Always.
constantly. Yeah. And he had to force my shoulders down. I was like, wait, is that how it's supposed to be? like physically my body wasn't used to it. Like that's how like stressed out I was, and I had no idea. I was like, I'm fine. I can deal with this. This is fine.
Well, and that goes into the whole masking thing, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, and also, but like just for like growing up at all, like if you have alexithymia, it's like, yeah, being told that you're okay when you're not okay is really not a great thing for your body or like your stress levels. I don't know. I don't know if, I guess that is masking to some extent, but I had no idea even, like this was like subconscious muscle tension that I was holding. And I'm pretty sure that it was because of like my sound sensitivity and my hyperacusis stuff. And for most of the day. Because once I, like, especially just during the pandemic, I'm like in my apartment, like, and it's quiet for the most part, like I have control of this. I have been so much less like stressed by like sensory things. Like I think I'm stressed out by other things, but I am probably the most relaxed I have been for most of my life, like this last year, which is kind of depressing.
It's depressing, and it's also kind of like illuminating in another way, kind of opening your eyes to what could be if sensory wise things were better.
Yeah. Very true.
One of the bajillion comments. And before we get to the hypercuss, I want to ask you, thank you. I'm gonna just mess that word up every single time. Fine. Before we get to that, I want to ask you, like, okay, so what type of strategies or visuals? Because right now I'm seeing that smiley face emoji chart.
That is not helpful to me.
Or mad, or you know what I mean? Like, nobody does that. Yeah. Nobody's face looks like that. So,
and they teach that to children. They're like, these are the emotions, and you're.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, what is the better way to do this? Like,
so some things that help, like, it's different for everyone, but for me, it's like I write down the things that I know bother me from like a sensory standpoint. So I also have like a post about this called, I think it's just titled Alexithymia and Interoception. And I literally go over like how I try to figure things out. And a lot of times it's trial and error. And I have like my go-to ones that I try first. And then I think, okay, have I eaten today? Have I drank water? Am I hydrated? Right? Those are the first things. And then thirdly, like, am I too warm? Because I'm usually wearing a jacket. So I'll take my jacket off. And if that doesn't work, then I'll put my headphones on. And so like, there's just like a list of things I have to remember to go through and say, and then if all of that doesn't work and 2 hours later, if my head still hurts, I'll go, oh, I have a sinus headache or something. So like, just make a list of like the things that you know or other people have pointed out bother you and stress you out. And then like, write it down as like a priority thing. The other thing I do is like have a mental like checkpoint during the day where you just literally stop yourself and you go, okay, have I eaten today? Like, am I feeling okay? Because I don't stop myself if I'm not feeling very good. And then it gets worse and worse. And then I'll be like, oh, that noise is driving me crazy. I should have put headphones on, like, and so just literally having like 3 times a day, stopping yourself, having a reminder or something that's like check in with yourself and think about whether you've eaten and like drank water and like, if you're feeling okay. because I have to like mentally check it. Like, what are my muscles doing? Am I relaxed? Are my shoulders down? Am I clenching my jaw? Like all of those kind of stuff. So it's all like conscious. It's all conscious stuff, which is just more work for us, but it's
a
way
lot of
better.
work.
It's
It's
way
like
better than not doing anything and waiting and being like, why am I so upset right now?
It is a lot of work because, I mean, it's almost like you have to set alarms for yourself to say, okay, setting like 3 times a day, like we're going to check in with our own selves. That is, I mean, that is a lot of work. It's a lot of work to remember. It's a lot of work to figure it all out.
The other thing you can do is like some people really like the color wheel of like emotions. Even behind on your screen, I see like dysregulated, afraid, and anxious and confused, and I'm like, oh, those are all really nice words I could use, like, you know, because I don't have access to that like emotional wheel in my head when I'm thinking of like what my body's doing. And the other thing is like what I tell parents, especially because oftentimes I would have a hard time like physically talking about how I felt. If like I came home, my mom said, "Oh, how are you doing? At like how was school?" I was like I would yell at her like, "Don't tell me that. I'm tired. I don't want to deal with that." Whereas I don't think I would have done that if she was like, "Oh, how stressed are you from like 1 to 100?" And I just wrote it down on a whiteboard every day, or like just non-speaking ways of communicating, "I'm really stressed right now," because then like if you stress out, if the kid's stressed out and then you get stressed out, it's just like a stress wheel of badness. So like any non-speaking ways of communicating, like just to check in that like the kid's okay is a good way to go.
Those are all great. And that just makes me think of when my kids were in kindergarten and they would come home with like the behavior sheet. Let's not go there. We're not going into that conversation, but they would come home with a behavior sheet and it would have like one emotion for the entire day, or like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
One single, like either this one or this one or this one. And I'm thinking to myself, that's a long time to be that one specific way. I'm sure that's not accurate at all. Yeah. Yeah, these words, I'll put it over this way. There we go.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, so that's why they're there. But yes, I get what you're saying. All right, so we have comments. Let me see if anybody had asked a question. Angelina says check-in is so important. My door keeps slamming because we have the windows open. It's 74 here today.
Yeah, it's pretty warm here too.
I noticed my son his relaxed pose is having his feet scrunched up tight and his calf muscles really tense. He seems relaxed in all other ways. I mean, that's a whole nother thing about like proprioception as well, like that those pressure and it might even go into, and I don't know much about EDS. Is it EDS?
Syndrome.
Yeah, it might even go into that with the joints, and I'm not a doctor.
I mean, a lot of people with hypermobility have tight calves, or like people who, if you want to, or not if you want to, but people who like toe walk. Like I toe walked as a kid, but like I didn't do it all the time, like in school, and I did marching band, so eventually I stopped doing it. But basically, if you toe walk, like
It'll shorten it.
Yeah, but you get used to like having tight calves. I don't, like that might be another reason if they toe walk. I don't know.
All right, so let's go into sensory sensitivities and hyperacusis. Did I say it right that time?
Hyperacusis.
Hyperacusis.
You almost got it. You're close.
Okay. Tell us what hyperacusis is, because you're really the first person who's really talked to me about it. Can you tell us what it is and all of the things?
Yeah. So most people don't really even know the word hyperacusis. The most common way people know about it is that a a lot of neurotypical people can have hyperacusis when they have hearing loss, usually just generally from like aging and noise exposure. If you have some high frequency hearing loss, you can have sounds can sound like too loud and like painful to you. However, a lot of autistic people seem to have this, but it's not really well researched. A review article just came out recently about autism and hyperacusis, and it's very good, and I'm very glad it's written. But basically, there's a lot of research to be done on it. Essentially, I've always had pain with loud sounds, and yeah, with loud sounds. That's what hyperacusis is. Basically, pain or discomfort or like feeling of being too loud with loud sounds. And by loud sounds, I mean like people clapping, someone talking too loud. Hand dryers are awful. I was going to say microwaves, but I meant to say lawnmowers. Lawnmowers and weed whackers and a lot of other like machine sounds. Oh, vacuums are a big one. Vacuums are
Is it decibel thing? Like
so
the
it's
pitch?
the
Is
loudness. It can be the loudness, and it also can like involve frequency. For me, it's mostly like broadband noise and like higher pitched broadband noise sounds. So it's kind of like so you know the sound when like a bus stops, like, and it's like the air compression. That is like the worst sound for me. It's really painful. So it's unclear, again, like we haven't really studied hyperacusis in autistic people, especially in autistic adults. Most of the time, they're like parent reports on autistic kids avoiding sound, but what that means is they're probably avoiding sound for a reason. Some people have like misophonia, which is a separate thing, and you can have like a bunch of different kind of like auditory sensitivity conditions, but right now the literature is just like all lumping everything into the word auditory sensitivity. So you kind of have to find what they're doing and like how they're measuring things and what they're looking at to figure out whether it's hyperacusis or not, because people aren't using it at all as like a separate thing for autistic people. But basically, there's this one study that I looked at where there was a correlation between hyperacusis and this particular mutation in autistic adults. So it may be, this is a very, very maybe, because I've only seen one study on this, it may be like a genetic co-occurring condition in autistic people. Because I've always had it. Like my first memory was like being in a movie theater and I started crying. And the like staff gave me like a Laffy Taffy and brought me to the projecting room because it was so loud. I just started crying. But like, I just always thought everyone had pain with loud sounds, like the bell, like the school bell, or being in the cafeteria, very big spaces with concrete that lots of reverb are usually like louder in general. So yeah.
And that's painful to you, like in your ears.
Yeah, it feels like someone's actually like sticking a knife in my eardrum. Like that's the feeling. There's like different theories on how hyperacusis is caused. Even in neurotypical research, we don't really know. There are actually pain fibers that innervate into the cochlea. And so there's like more research about that recently. But again, this is for more like neurotypical or non-autistic people who experience this or get like noise exposure and have hyperacusis after noise exposure. So yeah, we don't really know the cause of it, but like whenever I ask on Twitter, I get a lot of responses about autistic people saying, yeah, that's exactly how some people describe it as an ice pick even.
I'm reading all of the comments here. I'm listening to you and reading, and it seems, I hope that slamming doors is not one of your...
It's not loud enough on your end, so it's okay.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I think Angelina was asking, do we know the difference? It seems like...
Yeah. So yeah, that's a good question. So misophonia is more about the characteristic of the noise and not so much the sound level. And it usually is like quieter sounds, like pens clicking or like people eating can basically make it's like an insula activity. Like it makes people really angry, and so it's not the same as like, it feels like my ears are literally being stabbed or something. But with misophonia, it's like an emotional reaction that you can't really like prevent for the particular sound. And usually it's like around eating, like other people chewing, and like high frequency quiet sounds. Whereas hyperacusis is specifically about like loudness. But yeah, the auditory sensitivity thing, again, there's not really like, people use the word auditory sensitivity and it means a lot of different things depending on the paper that you're reading. I've kind of subcategorized it into like reduced habituation, because I have auditory sensitivity too, and that quiet sounds can sound louder over time for me. Like fluorescent lights buzzing is a really big one. So like if I'm in a room and I hear the fluorescent lights, it's like it takes over most of my attention and it becomes louder. So, but everything is called auditory sensitivity. So like they'll call that auditory sensitivity. They'll call like hyperacusis noise and auditory sensitivity. They'll call misophonia auditory sensitivity.
It's funny you even mentioned the fluorescent lights. I wouldn't even have thought of that as like an auditory thing. Like the fluorescent, oh my. The fluorescent lights are just, yeah, I can like hear them, but it's not even a hearing thing. It's almost a feeling thing. It's like vibrating throughout my entire body. I went to the post office one day and I'm like, going like this because there's one blinking above my head. And the guy was like, well, what's wrong, man? And I said, well, you don't see that? How do you live it? How do you work right here for 8 hours? And I have my hand like this. And he said, that's interesting. You're like every 10th person comes and asks me about that. And I don't know what you're talking about, but you're like the, whatever person to ask me about that. And they literally did not see it or feel it or anything. And I'm saying,
Yep.
I don't know. But I wouldn't have thought of that as an auditory thing.
Yeah, for me, it's a lot of like the really long fluorescent lights on the ceiling.
The tube,
like in schools, yeah, those are the ones that are.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah. I don't have really bad light sensitivity, but the blinking stuff bothers me. Like when lights don't work, it really like I feel like I'm like visual motion sensitivity or something. Like when I've had to wait at grocery stores, I'll look down because I can't deal with like all of the movement happening.
We bought this star for our Christmas tree this year. Sorry for the personal stories, but we bought one that's spun these like projections on the ceiling. So every time I would see it like out of the corner of my eye, I would be like about to like pass out or something. I'm like, why did we buy this?
Oh, no.
Let's see. I'm gonna ignore some of these comments. Let's see. Oh, Asia2 said, I hate the sound of the refrigerator.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common. I mean, luckily I don't think our refrigerator has bad noise, but like any like electronic thing, I can usually like not everything, but like especially like laptop fans, computer fans are pretty like, even though they're quiet, they like catch my attention a lot. That's the other type I was going to mention was like, so there's reduced habituation, and then there's like
I don't know what that is.
So the thing I just talked about like quiet sounds getting louder. I just made up a term because habituation is basically when your brain like learns to not pay attention to the same like stimulus, right? So like you hear a sound and then you tune it out eventually because it's in the background. But for me,
it's a habitual sound. That's what you mean by that.
Not really, but that's okay. I'm not good at explaining this idea, honestly. So I need practice on how to.
You can totally practice on us. Totally.
So habituation is like your brain like stops responding to it. So that's what I mean by habituation. Like it habituates to the stimuli.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't remember what it is. Oh, so the reduced filtering is like another kind of type that I'm making up again. But a lot of people have talked about reduced filtering with autism, and basically like I'm constantly hearing other sounds that are just I'm sorry, Angelina. I
No,
keep
we love it. We
um,
love this.
I
Yeah, we need
I
it.
talk about a little bit I think it's the most recent post I wrote about that movie, like The Sound of Metal, and I talk about auditory sensitivity. I think I wrote some of this stuff in that post.
I
So
read that. Yeah.
yeah, so if you want to check that out or something, it might be helpful. I don't know. But reduced filtering basically to me is like I'm hearing everything all the time. So I can't like hone in on one conversation in a restaurant because I'm constantly hearing like, 2 or 3 booths behind me, I'll be hearing someone else talking. And so I'm constantly like hearing overlapping conversations, and I have to like focus on what the person in front of me is saying because they all sound like they're right next to me. Like they all sound the same. But to someone else, it's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna focus on this conversation. Everything else is gonna be in the background. But like instead I'm hearing like, I'm hearing like 3 conversations at the same time. I'm hearing the kitchen staff talking to each other. I'm hearing like kitchen plates clinking, which is really bad for my hyperacusis. So that's what I mean by reduced filtering is like basically just hearing everything.
Wow. And for parents, we have one parent that just typed in, my 3.5-year-old will come home. Will come and get me and say, "Mommy, make it stop," and want me to unplug the fridge or certain TVs or the washing machine. I feel our pain.
Yeah, I definitely recommend ear protection. Like I'm sure you can't use like earplugs and stuff for kids that young, but definitely like see if they can wear ear defenders maybe.
These are cool. I got these. They're cheap too because I do not have Bose. I don't have a Bose budget, so I would love to get some Bose, but these are pretty good. They do drown out. They don't drown out talking, that's what kind of gets to me. Like I can't concentrate when people are talking, but they do drown out other sounds. They have the what do you call it? The
Noise canceling.
cancellation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't actually use active noise canceling. Only because I think it makes my tinnitus worse because I also have tinnitus. Another
Oh
auditory
my
condition.
gosh.
It's really wild for me. So like most of the time I'm not paying attention to it. But I just said the word, so now I'm like, oh yeah, that's happening.
Oh my gosh, my dad has that, and I know that is like,
yeah.
it almost drove him crazy when it started. Like, sorry, not crazy. It
Yeah.
made
him frustrated for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm very lucky in that mine's very mild. So like I don't notice it most of the time. But when I use noise canceling, it seems to make it worse. So I don't. And also, noise canceling seems not. At least the ones I've tried cheaper versions, and they don't seem to help very much for me. They mostly cancel out low frequency noises.
Yeah.
Which I don't need low frequencies. Low frequencies sometimes help me mask the other sounds. So like one time I was on a plane and a baby was crying, and it was much worse with my noise canceling headphones on.
It amplified it.
Yeah, it made it so much worse. So taking them off was better. So I just use like regular headphones when I'm like outside. I use these Impal ones because they have a nice kind of like seal on the inside. They just seem to fit my ear better, and so they get rid of a lot of those high frequencies that really hurt my ears with hyperacusis. And I can still hear like people talking and stuff.
Nice. Yeah, when I first put on the noise canceling, it made me feel like my ears were like, when you go underwater and they get kind of clogged.
Yeah.
That's what it kind of made me feel like my ears needed to pop a little bit. So it was a different kind of sensation. I've gotten used to them, and
yeah, it works really well for some people I know. Some autistic people for sure. But it's just not really for me because I need like the high frequency cancellation.
Awesome. All right, let's switch topics. Okay. I want to hear your thoughts. You have lots of thoughts about female autism. I know that you have thoughts about that, and and I don't want to guide you in your thoughts. So I want you to talk about all the things about female autism and go.
I feel like I'm lecturing right now. I feel kind of bad.
I love this. This is what we love. Teach us.
Okay. So I'm a non-binary person, and there's lots of there's a lot of push in like thinking about new diagnostic assessments for autistic people, and there's like this narrative, and if you haven't known about this narrative before, definitely check out Karen Rose has like a really good research paper that he wrote with someone else who I'm sorry, I don't remember her name.
He does.
But like they just got this published recently, and it's all about how the narrative of like this female autism kind of drive to assess like girls' autism and women's autism is inherently flawed, because we're like the reason people raised as girls may have a certain profile isn't because they have different autism. It's just because they have different influences like telling them like how to behave and what to be expected in society. Like for example, like I wasn't really allowed, like I didn't feel like I could show anger, and that if I showed anger, I felt like that was a lot worse than when like my brothers showed anger. And it's like if you look up research, it's like, yeah, like people raised as girls are basically told not to show anger, like implicitly, not like explicit way. But in that way, I turned a lot of my meltdowns into shutdowns. Even at like as young as like 8 years old, I was like, I can't like yell and scream or do these things because I would be a spoiled brat or something, or like and so instead I would basically force myself to not do that, and then I would be like in a shutdown, which is similar to me, it's similar to like sleep paralysis, because I've experienced sleep paralysis a lot. It's like I just can't move even if I can think, and I can't really talk. And if I try to talk,
can you concentrate? Or
so I can think it's all there. Like I'm thinking about the situation, I know what's going on. I just literally can't. If I talk, it's like I won't be able to talk for the next 5 hours or so. Like the more I talk, the longer I'll stay in that state.
So it's like you're internalizing what naturally you would have external, you would have manifested externally, but you're internalizing it.
Yeah. And that's
the shoulders. No.
Great. Yeah, the shoulder thing. Sure. I'm sure I was like this and like looking at the floor, and like, a lot of times it just looked like I was crying and I couldn't talk. But it was really like I was crying and I was having a shutdown, and I knew like, and I don't know if it was like my brain learned it, or like I decided I can't yell and shout, so I can't do that. And then like, because I didn't do that, it like turned into a shutdown. I don't know like which one it was, but a lot of times people raised as girls are like taught to do that, right? And so then it's like, oh, okay, well, you're just a girl crying is like what the parent thinks. Not like, oh, you're really stressed out and overwhelmed, and it's like by something that happened or sensory stuff. Like that's not really a thought, because it doesn't look like a meltdown, quote unquote. So I guess my point is that a lot of times people raised as girls are like kind of forced into doing that, like implicitly, like almost praised. Yeah, almost like conditioned to do it, and like, yeah, almost praised to do it. Like, oh, that's okay. It's okay if you cry, but you can't yell. Whereas it's kind of the opposite. If you're raised as a boy, I mean, I can't speak to that experience, but I'm assuming like if you're raised as a boy, it's okay to like punch some like a pillow or something, right? And like scream, but it's not okay to like cry. And so, and I think Kieran they use the words like internalized and externalized, as opposed to like female autism or male autism or like women, girl autism or whatever. So I think I covered most of it, but like, yeah, it's just like how we're expected to be. And also if you have another identity, like if I'm non-binary, what does non-binary autism look like? Like, obviously it's going to be different for like, literally everyone is going to be a different autistic person, number one. So, and also like, it's more than just gender, right? You like thinking about like race and like what like religion you grow up in and like all these other factors in your life is going to
Culture,
determine
yeah.
how you can act in the world. And so if you look at someone and you have a set characteristic of things that you have to check off, and like you're like, well, I didn't grow up like that, or like I was told not to stim, and you're looking for me stimming, like that's not going to work.
Right. Well, you don't. Right. So you don't stem this. You don't stem, but maybe you would have if you were raised in a way that you were allowed to do that. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, like if you were like, it just, there's a lot of pressure to be a certain way for if you are like different identities. Like for example, like, you know, like people of color like have to mask when they're in public and like for their safety, right? So they're not gonna like, it's not going to be easy probably for them to, number one, get a diagnosis, people to recognize that like, oh yes, people of color can also be autistic, because like that doesn't seem to be known, and like people are really biased about race and stuff like that. So it's the same problem. Like you can't just have like, this is what like this identity autism looks like, because that just doesn't make sense because we're different.
Well, I think that's fascinating. I think it's great that people are writing about that. And I don't think that I read Kieran's article. Do not tell him that I did not read it.
It was like a research article that was, I think it was published in Autism Adulthood Journal.
I didn't even know that was a journal. I didn't even know there was a journal called that.
Yeah, it has some, it was, again, it's relatively recent. So
I'm taking all these notes.
I wish I could find it right now, honestly.
Somebody just put it in the comments. I think Angelina found it. Because they said that Kieran did it with Pearson or something like that.
Yeah, Amy Pearson, I think.
ResearchGate, conceptual analysis.
Yeah, it's libertpub.com. Yep.
Amy Pearson.
Yeah, that's the
one.
LibrePub,
got it. Here, let me put that up.
It's called A Conceptual Analysis of Autistic Masking. But yeah, it's a really good take on it.
This might be where you can find it without subscribing to the journal or something, I'm guessing.
ResearchGate is like a different website where you can like look people up and look at all their publications. So you either one, I think you can access it. I don't know if you can access the full version. I think the full version is on the LibrePub link also.
All right, I'm going to go through some of these comments, y'all.
Oh, and the one thing I did want to say was, it's also like assuming that everyone who's raised as a boy is externalizing and has very quote unquote obvious autism or something, when that's also like not.
It's funny you mentioned that, because my kids, I don't think they've ever had a meltdown, and it was confusing to me because I mean I knew they were autistic, right? But they've never had a meltdown. I've seen a meltdown, and that they've never had that. And then I want to say it was a year ago that I realized that they had shut down. I didn't even know what a shutdown was, because to me, I recognized it because it was like they were zoned out. It was like they were just not there anymore. Like we had gone to Great Wolf Lodge. I don't know if you know what that is, like an indoor water park or something. And so when you go there, you have these paw passes where you have to go around and do all of these things. So we wanted to do all of these things before we left, right? Smart of us, right? So we did, we went to make bracelets, and then we went to make this teddy bear thing, and then we went here, and then we're in the candy shop, right? Last stop, candy shop. And I looked at one of them, and he wasn't smiling, right? Or nothing. He was just standing there in the candy shop like.
Yeah.
And that's when it clicked. It was because I do it myself sometimes when I'm just like, I'm not shutting down, but I zone out. And I mean, they were gone. They were just completely gone. ready to go, mom fail. I get it. But they don't externalize that part of it. They externalize other parts, but like it can be both, right? I mean, some people
Yep.
can externalize this and internalize that, and it's not like anybody fits into like this little one checklist. I don't know. I'm rambling.
Yeah, and as a kid, I thought I was having like, okay, number one, I thought that everyone when they cried couldn't talk. I was like, that's just how crying works, because that's like, because I would have shutdowns, I would cry and I'd have a shutdown and I couldn't talk, and so I thought that was like a regular thing that just happens. And then number two is I thought these were, and later on, I thought these were like panic attacks. And then I had an actual panic attack, and I was like, that's different though, because I could still kind of talk a little bit. So sometimes I had like a panic attack and then a shutdown in the same day, and I was like, oh, those are very different experiences, like both not fun, but very different. And I don't know, I just kind of, it's easy to assume that it's like an anxiety thing and not realize that you're having like a shutdown, or again that you have no idea that it's sensory related too. It's like, oh, it's just everyone has this and they're not upset, so why am I upset? So it's just hard to figure out, and like alexithymia really doesn't help. And also people being like, you're just crying, why can't you talk, you should be able to talk right now, doesn't help either.
Oh my gosh.
Also like the whole like, because I'm like highly verbal, or like I speak a lot, right, most of the time, so many adults would try to get me to talk. Even as an adult, like I had a shutdown during an exam, like, well, after an exam, it's kind of a long story. I had a shutdown and like I literally couldn't leave the room until I said like I'm fine multiple times to this person, because she was standing in the doorway. Like I couldn't leave. I was like, so it just got worse and worse. And I was like, I squeaked out like, a few words, but I couldn't talk for maybe 5 hours that night. Like I drove home and I was like,
they wouldn't let you
because she was so worried.
Yeah.
Like it's just such a hard thing for people to understand. And at one point I even had a faculty person, and this was all like, I knew I was autistic, but I didn't have a diagnosis. I didn't know if I can say I was autistic and all of that stuff. Like it was a whole thing. And I was like, I'll just deal with it. I'll figure it out. And I had another faculty person literally she said, did someone die? Like, because I had like one of the worst like meltdown shutdown things I had, and I had, it was like a required meeting I was in with other people, and I just kept trying to go in. I'm like, okay, I'm okay this time. And then she'd look in my eyes and I was trying to look down. Like it was just a combination of so many things. And so it's like people just see me and they're like, what's wrong? And they want to help. And it just makes everything so much worse. And they can't recognize, like, if I'm not talking, that doesn't mean I'm trying not to. It means I literally can't. Like I would happily tell you I'm totally fine right now, but I physically could not like say a word to this person. And she thought one of my family members had died. Like, because they see me like this and they go, oh, well, something must be wrong, and they want to fix it. And yeah, so it's really hard to get people to understand when they see me as a highly intelligent, whatever, like speaking person who goes to school. Like
that whole speaking, the whole speaking value system we have.
Yeah.
Asia too said, I had severe meltdowns as a kid for literally hours, and the neighbors called the cops, thinking my parents were abusing me a few times.
Oh, that's
dangerous. Facebook user says, at the moment, it seems to be an automatic regulating response for them.
Yeah, I mean, I actually didn't know that I could cry without being in a shutdown until I was an adult. Like, if I go to movies and cry now, I can cry and, like, I'm still okay and it's not a shutdown. And I didn't know I could do that.
Okay. So this is like really interesting. So it's going to get me to read Kieran's article about it. And you are in academia. And do you do research in this area or not?
No, I didn't know I was autistic when I went to grad school. Can I address one comment really quick?
Absolutely. Which one?
Someone said, yes, my 10-year-old daughter shuts down over melting down because she's been shamed by teachers at school.
Where is
So
that? I
that's
didn't see that one.
It's at 439. I was an earlier comment.
Oh gosh, sorry.
By Facebook user.
Man.
But that's like shame is such a huge thing in this. Like, if you feel bad about feeling bad, you're going to feel worse, and it's even harder to get out of a meltdown and a shutdown. It's so hard. If someone like, oh my gosh, or even family members when I haven't been there, if she showed unacceptable girl behavior. Yeah, so I have a post called "The Spoiled Brat Stereotype" on my blog, and I talk about how a lot of things are like weirdly gendered. Like, if you're raised as a girl, a lot of autistic people said that they had the princess and the pea analogy, or they'd call them like, it's like the high maintenance spoiled brat kind of. Yeah, and there's a lot of that, and like that shame is really hard to unlearn when you get that as a kid, and it's just going to make shutdowns so much worse. Like, to know like something's wrong with you, why can't you talk? Like, that's not a good feeling. It's just shame is like the worst thing you can do if someone's having a shutdown, is like make them feel bad about it.
I'm sorry that your daughter is going through that. I think that maybe bringing in an article from Ira's blog and having them read that. And you have some really great articles for like people that are just new. Like, you're really great at breaking it down for someone who just doesn't know anything about it, which is why I love your blog so much. And which is probably why I was drawn to you in the very beginning, because I was like, okay. And you will break things down so that I can understand it as somebody who's just beginning to learn about these things. So yeah, check out their blog for sure.
I also have like this Dear Autistic Kid series where I like wrote like letters, and there's one about meltdowns that might be useful. I don't know if she'd want to read that or not, but
for sure. And this kind of goes to my next. I'm gonna check my notes real quick. It kind of leads into your thoughts on the NT perception of autistic people, and just things that you explain, like with autistic people, like tone. You talk about tone on your blog. You talk about, you did something for Neuroclastic. You wrote an article for Neuroclastic about how parents can absorb. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not really sure either, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wrote about there's one article I did write for Neuroclastic about the golden rule, and Tara also helped a little bit because she like showed people this one picture of someone trying to help a person, and there's like neurotypical responses and there's autistic responses. All the autistic responses are like, she looks really upset. People need to get away from her. Like, this is like, she looks sensory, like she looks like she's in a shutdown. Why are they touching her? And then neurotypical people are like, it looks like they're so very supportive.
Give them a hug. Yeah.
And it's like exactly kind of what I was saying about like the whole shutdown situation is what's supportive to one person that can be like even intrusive and painful to someone else. And yeah, I did write one about tone.
It was How to Ask an Autistic 101.
Oh, that one.
Remember that?
Yeah, that one's just about like language and like functioning labels and stuff.
Oh yeah, that was, yeah. Oh, I thought maybe I'm just confusing some of them.
Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't.
Oh yeah, I am confusing some of them. I was reading a lot of different ones today. And somebody asked how they can, thank you, Caroline, for putting that link up there. Somebody asked how they can access your articles.
Oh, yeah. It's just autisticscienceperson.com.
I would put it up on my banner, but I misspelled something, so I'm not gonna put it.
No worries. But yeah, so we were talking about, you mentioned tone. And for me, so when people get upset at me, it's usually because, like, about my tone specifically, it's usually because I'm really interested in a subject and I want to keep talking about it. And so I'll talk quickly and maybe a little bit louder. And people think that I'm like trying to argue with them or like trying to change
Talk over them.
Yeah, maybe. And then the other times is when I'm really stressed out and I can't mask my tone of voice. My tone of voice is probably the hardest thing for me to mask. And I don't, like, I at one point, there's an interaction with my mom who's not autistic, and I was trying, she was saying, like, oh, can't you be a bit nicer or something? And I was kind of annoyed by, like, she thought I was talking back to her or something. And I literally imitated her tone of voice. I thought I was like, making it really overdone. And she said, oh, that's really nice of you. Thank you. And I was trying to be sarcastic.
You were trying to mock her.
I like being like lilting and like being really high up and really low and like really, you know, floaty was like the way to do it. And I was like, what? Like, do you not understand? I literally just tried to make fun of, you know, how you were talking to me.
I should be in trouble right now.
Yeah, I was like so confused by her response. I was like, I can't do that every day. That's too much energy. Like I felt like I was singing, and I do, like, I sang as a kid, and I felt like I was literally singing at her. So like the other thing I think is that I think maybe we hear tone of voice, like pitch changes a little more than non-autistic people. So like I might notice someone lilting their voice just a little bit, and someone else might think it's completely monotone. And maybe that's why I don't like modulate my voice as much as if I was like a non-autistic person who was trying to convey the same emotion. Because to me, it's like, oh, well, I heard the change there. I don't know. That's just a theory, obviously. But anyway, so what I'm saying is that usually if we sound angry, like we're either like frustrated, really upset, and really stressed out or overloaded, or like maybe we're just talking about our special interest or like a hobby that we really like or something, and it's not meant to like have a message. Like I'm not trying to say something with how I say something. I'm just, imagine if I was just like typing on a keyboard an email and that's what I was saying. Like that's the equivalent, the most equivalent I can get to what I'm trying to portray.
You did a TED Talk?
No, no, I didn't. I saw that comment. I went, what?
Oh, it's because somebody just asked for the link. I'm like, wait a minute. It was not in my research.
I think that was a comment confusion. I think someone was saying maybe I would.
You should do a TED Talk, probably.
Oh, no, I don't know.
TED won't let me talk. I don't know why.
Wait, really?
Well, I've like told them that I want to talk, but they'll let other parents talk. They'll let other parents talk.
That's
say all of the things that I don't want to say. They don't want me to talk. They don't want to hear what I have to say. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, I was like, hold on.
The other thing which I'm currently doing is like nervous laughter is the other thing that gets misinterpreted a lot. Like if I don't know how to answer a question, I might laugh. And especially if you're trying to like teach a class or something, people may think that you're like trying to make fun of them. And it's like, no, sorry. That's like, I'm just like pausing and I'm trying to think of words and I just immediately start laughing. Or sometimes we'll laugh in like when it's a really like deadpan awkward moment or something, and it may not be funny to anyone else, but it's just like, if this were a movie, this would be funny. And so I'd laugh and people would be like, what is wrong with you? Like, why are you laughing?
It's like really not helpful at funerals.
Yeah.
Really not helpful.
I'm sure it's not.
But
it's really hard to explain to people when that happens, and you don't, you like, I can't, even sometimes I'll say something and I'm trying to be supportive, and then I realize it might come across as sarcastic because a lot of times people think I'm being sarcastic when I'm not. And then I'll say like, sorry, I wasn't trying to be sarcastic. And then I worry that was sarcastic like there's just no way to like kind of explain it through voice continually because they'll just keep misinterpreting what you're trying to say.
It's a lot of effort. I can feel your shoulders going up. All right, I want to get in this question because we've been talking for an hour. I want to get this question in before you like tell us you have to go. So, if you could give one piece of advice to the parents of newly diagnosed children or a diagnosed child, what would it be?
Yeah, so I know you emailed me this ahead of time, and I'm not sure if I have a
Full
good
disclosure, this is not her. This is
thinking
not their
through.
fault. This is my fault because I thought I had emailed them.
No, it's not about you. If you sent this 2 days ago or a month ago, I still wouldn't have an answer because it changes every single time I'm asked that. So, let me think for a second. Oh yeah, this is one answer. I don't know if it's the right answer, but if you're a parent and people are telling you to do things who are not autistic, just trust yourself in supporting your kid and what they need instead of like being like, oh, well, they're professionals, so they must know this. Because if they're professionals, they're probably been trained by people who are not autistic. So like a lot of times with the whole people with autism and versus autistic people, we'll get, well-intentioned professionals replying saying, oh, well, it's people with autism. And it's like, okay, well, where did you learn that? And they said, well, I learned it in my training. And I said, okay, well, where do you train? And it's almost always from, neurotypical people.
What's the medical model? Like the professionals, the pretty much, I mean, even teachers with whatever kind of autism training they have, it's based on medical model, right?
Right. But even just like in the most simplistic form of it, they're not being trained by autistic people.
No.
And they're telling parents what to do with autistic kids. So like maybe just ask us, like there's plenty of resources out there. I know it's not easy to find all the time. And make sure to like just say, like type in autistic adult or something and it will come up a little bit better. But yeah, like just trust your instinct. If you think something's not helping your kid, it's probably not helping your kid because you probably know your kid's stress responses better than like professionals who have never seen your kid before and worked with them for like 20 minutes. And so it's just like I can see so many parents who are like, is this okay? Like I feel like this, but like people are telling me this. And it's like, just you have experience with this. And if you listen to autistic adults and you follow us and you listen to your kid, especially, and you find ways to communicate with them, like you're good. Like you don't have to, there's no protocol for like, this is what you do when you have an autistic kid because everyone's different. So just to make sure to like listen to your kid and trust that, you know whether your kid's doing well or not and like what they may need, and we can help you if you have questions. But like if you're feeling pressured to do something by people who are trained by neurotypical people, you have every right to be like, no, that's okay, I don't think my child is being helped with this, or like I don't think this is right, or my child's really stressed out, so I'm gonna do like change things up, like that's totally fine.
If you get that feeling in the pit of your stomach, like this doesn't seem like something I would naturally do. That's great advice. And you have a list of resources on your blog, AutisticSciencePerson.com. And there's like a resource tab, and you have lots of resources up there that parents can find.
Yep.
And teachers, educators.
Anyone who wants them.
Yeah, all of the people. That's a great answer. I love that answer. There are no right answers. Everybody's answer.
Oh, I know there's not, but I've been trained to think that there is. So you know how school is, right?
I do. Everybody's answer has been different. It's been great hearing everybody's different answers. I need a thesaurus today. Oh, here we go. I think this is the best advice, and I wish I knew this 7 years ago. I always followed my gut, but I wish I knew the resources I know now to reach out to. For sure.
Also, ear protection is awesome. There's this whole myth that if you wear ear protection, you're making your senses be more sensitive or something, but there's not actually any research showing that that's true, especially for autistic people. So if like something causes pain, like sensory wise, just try to accommodate it, as opposed to like it. Like I tried myself to like get used to loud sounds. Like I played in a jazz band, I played in an orchestra, I played in a marching band. Like I didn't get used to it, you know. Like I wear headphones now and I'm totally fine with that, and it's made my life significantly better. So highly recommend.
It's ironic that you said that, because I just heard that myth today.
Yeah. I don't even like, there's no, if you actually look at the research, there's no research. It's all these kind of theories of like, well, you'd think if it doesn't even make sense. Like if you have auditory sensitivity, your brain's probably not habituating in the first place. So like by listening to more things, you're not going to change the way your brain is working. That's not how it works. Like that's why we have auditory sensitivity in the first place. So like if you're an autistic adult and you want to try something, you know, that's separate from what I'm saying, but I'm saying like if your kid is having problems, like they're not gonna learn to, their brain's not
like
gonna
your
habituate to
muscles.
it.
Yeah, it's not like your muscles where you can train them to get stronger. It's your, yeah.
Yeah, it's like the structure of your brain is not gonna change from, yeah.
I'm not going to name the person, but I actually heard that today from an autistic person.
Yeah, and that's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
It's really unfortunate.
And it was someone that, I don't know. I mean, somebody that's using outdated, whatever, all of the things outdated. But it was unfortunate because I'm sitting there screaming like, that doesn't even make sense.
I mean, there's really, it's just like the bottom line is there's just no research on that. Like the fact that it's all behavioral. It's all behavioral measurements. You know, there's ABA research papers that go, well, we made Tommy, you know, stand by the toilet and flushed it and he stopped crying because we keep doing it. Like basically they just keep doing it until he stopped crying. And they're like, okay, well, he doesn't have any sensory issues now. Like that was like, that's in a paper I've read about hyperacusis, specifically about an autistic kid, and like that doesn't, I'm sure he still feels pain. Like I'm sure you're just torturing a child. There's no other way to put it, honestly.
I have so many thoughts on what you just said, but I'm going to keep my mouth shut for this one.
Okay.
I have so many thoughts on that.
Yeah. But that's the research that's there. There's no, it's not from the child's perspective. No one's saying like the child said that they're fine or they filled out a survey or something. It's all like parent behavior directed. Oh, they're not avoiding the sound anymore kind of papers. And yeah. So yeah.
Don't do that, parents.
Yeah.
Trust your kid, trust yourself. Yeah, that just, oh my gosh. Okay. So I really appreciate this today. Is there anything else that you want to talk about? Maybe you have upcoming projects, or maybe you're writing a book, or any of the things that you want to talk about.
I'm trying to finish my thesis, but I don't know if that'll happen.
What's it on?
It's auditory neuroscience stuff. So, yeah. But anyway, that's a whole.
Not that I can help you with that.
It's a whole separate topic.
I'm asking you what it's on. Like, let me help you with that. No, I can't help you with that.
I just mean, I don't have any like upcoming projects or anything that I know of.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on. Everybody here has obviously loved it, and it's been super valuable. Thank you, book clubbers, for hanging out with us. This has been amazing as usual. We'll be here every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern. And I forget who we have next. Oh, I know who we have next week. It's Oh, it's Lindsay Rowe Parker and Rebecca Burgess.
Oh, awesome.
And they have a new children's book coming out that is amazing. And because I got to see it in advance. Yeah, so they're coming, and that's gonna be great too. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for coming, and you stay on because we'll be back in the studio. So
Gotcha.
bye, y'all.
Thanks.